Leinster can count themselves lucky to be leaving Rodney Parade with the win. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. No indication that Leinster were going to struggle at the start of this one. They strike pretty early, the open couple of minutes. A strong scrum allows them to kick up the line into the 22. They move from the line out, and then over goes Alex Soroka. Conversion miss, 5 points to nil. And, been banging the drum about Soroka now for the past few seasons. So it's great to see him getting, a decent run in the team and also getting reward for all of his hard work and the fact that he was able to come back, from, an injury as well, and just work himself back into contention in the team is really good to see. Harry Byrne then is offside from Maul, and Dragons have a kick at the post, but I believe it's Tinnis de Beer. His effort comes back off the upright, and Leinster are able to clear. Leinster then with a chance from a 5-metre line out, but Dragons do really well. They disrupt the Maul and turn the ball over, and Dragons were very good at actually turning Leinster ball over in this game. They then get another penalty and another chance to go, get themselves on the board, but this time they decide that they're going to go to the corner. Soroka gets up to compete, and Leinster are able to shut it down. It comes to nothing. A scrum penalty then allows Dragons to kick within 10 metres. And, Leinster, they had a period before this where they were looking decent, but not really, taking any extra points to add to that opening, the lead try that they got. And already, as a Leinster fan, thinking they might regret it because they haven't been in the best of form so far this season. Dragons, they go to one out runners from, Maul is halted early. So to one out runners, they win a few penalty advantages. Leinster then get a warning as there's a break in play. Dragons continue to apply pressure on the line, and Mangan goes to the bin, gave away a penalty pretty much straight after the warning. Dragons continue to plug away, and eventually they ground between the posts. And let me just double check who was the score on that one. Where are we here? Let me find it there. So that one was Matthew Screech was the try scorer there. And he's been a decent player for the Dragons the last couple of seasons that I've watched him there. So he gets over. It's right in front of the sticks, so Dragons convert it, and now they lead 7 points to 5. Dragons then block an attempted kick from Fintan Gunn. Penny is caught offside, and when play stops, he goes to the bin. Dragons kick to the corner, and Leinster looking very wobbly at this stage. Dragons another chance from a 5-metre scrum, but Leinster win a penalty at that scrum. Half-time is 7 points to 5, and you feel like it's a lot of work for Leinster to do in that kind of second half, because Dragons, they had that chance to kick to the corner, didn't really come to anything, but then they win that penalty at the scrum, Leinster win a penalty at the scrum, and the chances is just kind of gone for Dragons there. And you felt it, if they'd taken the lead again at that stage, it could have been a very different outcome. Into the second half then, and Leinster actually started the way they started. The first, we have some decent hands, and they're able to put JJ Kenny over in the corner. Converted from out wide by Harry Byrne. 12 points to 7. Leinster back in front. Yeah, and it felt like maybe the missed chance for Dragons to have a bigger lead at half time, and then Leinster scoring right after the break felt like kind of a 14-point turnaround at that stage, and that happens, you know, to a lot of teams against Leinster, even when they're not playing well. Dragons, though, they win a penalty at the restart, and Angus O'Brien makes it 12 points to 10, so they're not going away by any stretch of the imagination. Leinster then, they go to the corner from a penalty, they go to the maul, they roll it right, and over they go, and you feel like at this stage, you know, if they're starting to add points on now, they could just pull away. But um, they actually, you know, I think originally they'd given a try, and then they had a look at it and said no, they've actually been held up. And but Thomas Young gets pinged for starting around the handbags after. After, like, I think Leinster were celebrating what they thought was a try, and then he started something, and the two teams had already gotten a warning by that point. So penalty to Leinster. They're battering away at the line, but again they get held up over the line, and it felt like they just lacked a little bit of patience there. They went for it when they didn't really have the numbers, and they, got dragged over the line. No try, and uh, you know, Dragons just really great defense there from then. Leinster have gone to the bench at this stage, and Orgy Snyman offloads with Jimmy O'Brien through a gap. He's going for the try line, but there's brilliant scramble from the Dragons. There's a tap tackle in there. Somebody else gets to him as well. De Beer was definitely involved in that. Leinster recycle a couple of times on the line before Luke McGrath gets over. But again, it's a try that's ruled out because Boyle was lifting a leg as he cleared someone out over the ruck before McGrath went over for that. So no try, penalty to the Dragons. And you have to give a lot of credit to the Dragons defence there. But again, Leinster, maybe just a little bit of impatience and the fact that things aren't quite going their way, resorting to stuff that they really shouldn't be doing. But that's every team does those kind of things when the pressure is put on, and it's the Dragons putting the pressure on in defence. Leinster, though, do find a bit of a rhythm and show really good hands, and they get the ball out to JJ Kenny. He goes over for his second try, conversion miss, 17 points to 10. So they're slowly a little bit eking away for the Dragons, but again, it's still too close for comfort really for them. Then we have a great carry from Penny, brings Leinster from halfway into the 22. Again, you're thinking they've got some momentum here. They can suck in some defenders, spin the ball wide and get in, but no, Thomas Youngs manages to pinch the ball at a ruck, and Dragons are able to clear. Dragons then with a chance from a line out on the edge of the 22. They move the ball by this time, like it's lashing rain, it's slippery, and the ball just comes out like a bar of soap in contact. Leinster able to clear. Leinster then offside, and Dragons kick up the line into the 22. Leinster steal the line out, but then Dragons immediately turn the ball back over. They're camped on the Leinster line. Leinster's defence, though, slowly inches them back away from the line out to about 7 or 8 metres before they force a knock on. But we do have a Timo check for a tackle by Scott Penny. It's shoulder to head. Penny already got a yellow card, so if he's gonna get under a card, it's a red. Whether it's going to be a red card or yellow card, he's going to be off for the rest of the game anyway. The officials, though, don't see foul play, and they're saying there was a lot of dynamics in the tackle area. He wrapped, and then he came up and hit him in the head, and they're saying it was just the dynamics of the play, the tackle. There were other tacklers involved, other players involved as well, and that the head contact didn't resort from any kind of foul play, so therefore it wasn't a penalty, and because it's not a penalty, obviously they can't look at whether it was a card or not. And for me personally, I thought it's a yellow card, and I'm just basing that on what we've seen through November in the test window. that, you know, we've seen a lot of ones where, yes, he's wrapped, so it doesn't go to like the thing that South Africa caught with twice, which is he's always illegal, so therefore you can't consider mitigation. But still, we've seen very similar positions like that um, be called. No foul plays we saw there, a penalty, um, a yellow card, and a yellow card going for review. So we're not getting, you know, we're not getting enough consistency, I feel, with these kind of things. And it's something I talked about as well before. They were talking about with, you know, the bringing in the whole idea of things going to the bunker as well, is that all we're doing is, rather than making things simpler, we're creating more gray areas and more kind of, you know, lines of division between severity and stuff like that. And yeah, for me, as I said, I thought it was a yellow card, just given what I've seen in other ones. So I think Leinster very lucky not to have, you know, had to finish the game with 14 men, penalty to the Dragons right on their line as well. So having to defend against a team looking to get back level, you know, with only a few minutes left on the clock, and then to rub salt in the wound, you know, we're back for the scrum now, from that knock on. Leinster win a penalty at the scrum, and then we have another round of handbags, because obviously, if you're a Dragons player, you're going to be hugely, frustrated at the fact that you didn't get a decision there, and you're pretty much seeing, you know, the chance of, first of all, getting level and potentially going on to win a game as well, which they haven't done for a while at Rodney Parade. You know, just kind of evaporate in front of your eyes. Leinster then, they work the ball up, to round about halfway, to go to the air. Dragons knock the ball on, and then O.G. Snyman, he scoops up the loose ball, and his marauding run ends with him going over in the corner for the bonus point try, converted from the touchline, 24 points to 10. And then right at the death, Luke McGrath, he goes to the bin, because basically cynically, you know, he knows he's not back 10. Dragons have tapped the penalty. The clock is just about going into the red, and you know, he definitely deserves to go to the bin for that. Dragons up the line from the penalty, to the edge of the 22, but then I think they got pinged the line out. I think it might have been for a dummy throw or something like that. Free kick to Leinster, and then they get the ball off the field. Full time 24-10, but a great escape really for Leinster there. Like, Dragons deserved, you know, something out of that game at least. And to come away with nothing must be, you know, heart wrenching for them. And as a Leinster fan, like, you know, I feel like we really got away with one, in that game. Maybe on the balance of play, might have deserved the win. I certainly don't think we deserved a bonus point win. And I do feel, you know, Dragons at least deserved a losing bonus point, from their play in that. But we're going to have a look at the stats, and then we'll come back and briefly talk about each of the teams. So, stats, first of all, tries, 4 tries to 1 in favour of Leinster. But again, it doesn't tell really the story of the game. You know, it makes it feel like more one-sided than it certainly was. Possession then 54-46 in favour of Leinster. Offloads 12-5. O.G. Snyman, obviously, as always, blowing that number out in favour of Leinster when he come off the bench. Meters gained 177 for the Dragons and 415 for Leinster. So definitely Leinster, you know, making more ground. Clean breaks then 6-0. But Leinster, they made 6 clean breaks. But, you know, the scramble from the Dragons is really good, because hardly any of their tries actually came on the back of those clean breaks. Because when you think like the Sneyman one, definitely, but then there was the Penny one where like Youngs turned the ball over, and there was the one from Jimmy O'Brien where Dragons scrambled really well as well. So Leinster, yeah, clean break 6, but I thought the Dragons really did well with their scramble. The Friends beaten then 13 for the Dragons and 24 for Leinster. Onto defence then. Territory 51-41 in favour of the Dragons. Number of tackles 187 to 150. So the Dragons, certainly making more tackles, but not as many. Again, like it wasn't completely domination from Leinster. Missed tackles then 24 to 13. So Dragons is 79% tackle success rate, which is not great, and obviously that led to those defenders beaten in those clean breaks that we saw from Leinster. But the defence on their line was absolutely outstanding. Leinster tackling at 88%, which is a lot higher than we're used to seeing them, especially with that rush defence. But we didn't see them rushing that much in this one, and we didn't see the kind of thing that we regularly see with them, especially when Ringrose is playing at 13. That those kind of shooters coming out of the line, we weren't really seeing that from them in defence. Turnovers 1 then 5 for Dragons and 2 for Leinster, and turnovers lost 9 for Dragons and 5 for Leinster. So more kind of handling issues and the weather really affecting the Dragons on the turnovers that they lost, and then just their competitiveness of the breakdown for those turnovers won, and that dogged defence with the whole Leinster up twice on their own line as well. Kicks and play then 12 for Dragons and 24 for Leinster. Leinster certainly the more dominant team in the year, especially JJ Kenny who won the player of the match, I think deservedly so as well. He's really done well since his debut, and he could be a player who it feels like he's on a path like an express path compared to other players who've come in through the Leinster system, and he was actually skipped ahead of a few players kind of in terms of coming up from the academy. Started obviously in the sevens and seems to be really taking to the 15s really well. Kicks success then 67% for Dragons and 50% for Leinster. Kicking meters 357 for Dragons and 532 for Leinster, and kicks retained 7-0 in favour of Leinster. So again, showing that ability in the air and just that little bit extra with the boot as well. It meant that even though Dragons were very competitive, they were still Leinster had that out with those kicks, and Dragons didn't really have it on their own side. Then onto set piece. So start with line out. 11 line outs 1-16, but 5 line outs lost for the Dragons, so they're down at 69%, which is very poor. Leinster 100%, 16 out of 16. Line out steals then, Leinster stealing 3. I think Soroka stole maybe 2, and maybe Sneyman another one, I'm not sure. I know Soroka definitely stole 1. Scrums then, scrums 1-2 for Dragons, 6 for Leinster, and scrums lost 1 for Dragons, 2 for Leinster. 67% for Dragons at the scrum, 75% for Leinster. Yellow cards then, 3 for Leinster and none for the Dragons. And again, it just shows the amount of pressure that Dragons put on throughout the game, with McGrath basically at 80th minute or wherever he went to the bin for that final yellow card. Penalties conceded then, 7 for the Dragons, 18 for Leinster is just crazy. It's far too many, and they absolutely have to get a hold of their discipline. Attack penalties, 1 for Dragons, 5 for Leinster, and then defensive penalties, 6 for Dragons, 13 for Leinster. And again, that period where they're under massive pressure, just giving away penalty after penalty. Scrum offences, 7 for the Dragons and 2 for Leinster. And then line out offences, one for Dragons and none for Leinster. Pretty sure that line of offence was right there at the death, when I'm pretty sure it was a dummy throw that allowed Leinster to end the game. Okay, so those are stats. Let's talk about the teams briefly then. So starting with the Dragons home team, you know, Dragons, they haven't won this season, but they've got 2 draws, and also they're showing fight that we haven't seen from them, in a long, long time. And it's not just a case of like teams can now and again they can get up for a game, um, but it feels like more from the Dragons, and it feels kind of something similar to the way Scarlets were last year, where they found that bit of dog and that bit of fight and were able to stick in games, and eventually then that turned into getting results. And it feels like that's what the Dragons are at now, and because of that, you're you'd be more confident of them, getting that win at some point this season. Whether it's only one win, or they can go more than that, I'm not sure. But again, if you're able to stay in games, and not just for 60 minutes but right up to the death as they did in this one, then eventually those results are going to come for you, because your players at some stage they're going to take their chances. The defense that we've seen there, that they was so good for them on their own line, is going to pay off at some game as well. So a lot of positives, I think, for Dragons, especially for a team who've been kind of adrift last season at the bottom of the table. Now they're they knew coming into this round, whatever happened with the Scarlets, that they couldn't drop to bottom of the table, because Scarlets only have no points and the Dragons 6 anyway coming into this. But again, I think it's something. This is a game that will, I think, light a fire in them, and we will, sooner rather than later, see that Dragons win, I think, this season. Leinster, as I said, very lucky, I think, to get away with the win. Like, and the fact that they got a bonus point win is just, to me, is bizarre, because the performance did not deserve that. Having said that, there were some good performers you know, in there, but the problem I find is it's partly to do with like just holding that patience, but also leadership. It feels like Leinster, and I'd say kind of similar with Ireland, is that there are very few players who are kind of real leaders. And when you've got somebody that you would think of in Scott Penny, being a leader in the Leinster team, especially when all of the current Irish internationals are away, getting a yellow card and then almost getting a red card as well at the end. That things weren't going great for them. I know Alex Soroka was very good. Max Deegan had, by his standards, a very quiet game. Fintan Gunn, some good and some bad really from him at 9. Harry Byrne, when they got going, looked really good. And I thought Kieran Frawley looked decent as well. And then obviously Josh Kenny, who got player of the match. But they kind of relied on the likes of Rabah Slimani and Orgy Stamen coming off the bench to really help them, like dig them out of a hole there. Thought John McKee as well was decent off the bench as well. But yeah, Leinster, they're going into Champions Cup now next week. Obviously, it's going to be a very different side, but just around the whole Leinster environment, there hasn't been, very many positives at all this season so far. And at this point of the season, I think, even though the performance wasn't there, I think the fact that they got away with a win, and they got that win, they dug it out, and they came away with the bonus point as well. Those are positives that they can certainly build on in that prep for there. But you feel like, there's a lot of gears for this Leinster team to go up through, but it doesn't feel like they can kind of hit them at the moment. Now, again, a lot of personnel coming back in from Ireland camp, going to be a very different team in the Champions Cup, but it's just that it's the environment more than the personnel. I feel at this stage, so going to be interesting to see how they go there. But as I said many times, this is a very lucky bonus point win for them.